Now, looking at the market falling slightly on opening day of a relatively short week. Talk us through the performance.
Well, it's a slight dip, and it's perhaps not unexpected, but you can clearly see that it's those highly capitalized stocks that hit again, and what you really have there is some profit taking. Now, these are stocks that generally have very strong fundamentals and have a tendency to gain on capital within a short period of time. What you're probably having is portfolio managers taking in some profit before the end of the year.
So it's not really the fundamentals that are driving some of the gains, some of the losses coming through in the respective sectors. We had Nigerian breweries coming under pressure. We had First Bank also under pressure, as well as Zenith Bank.
No, certainly it's not the fundamentals, because if you also look on the other side in terms of the gainers, you'll find that there are stocks in those particular sectors that are also gaining. One thing that's interesting, though, you'll find is that with us approaching December 31st, year end for all the banks in the country, a good number of portfolio managers are going to start taking position in expectations of corporate actions to come. And this just might be the time to start picking up some of the good stocks at good prices.
Looking at the banking sector, what are the other sectors that you'd be going into at this stage, heading towards the end of the year?
Well, I tend to give the manufacturing sector a sure bet. And when I say manufacturing, it takes on the fast-moving consumer goods and also some of the food and beverages companies which we have over there. The tendency here is that, one, as we move towards the end of the year and the festive period, you usually will see a strong rise in terms of sales by these companies. And these are also companies with products that are pretty much price sensitive, in the sense that with inflation happening, with prices going up, they're always able to adjust the prices. They sell goods that are required by a lot of consumers, and so demand is relatively inelastic where their products are. That's why they're sure bets in terms of what they can achieve with turnover. Also, these are companies that typically have their year end in March and maybe middle of next year. So you'll find that these are the sort of companies you want to buy and hold on to with a mid to long-term type of perspective where they're concerned.
Within the manufacturing sector, which stocks are you particularly bullish on?
Well, certainly, I mean, I would look at the Nestle's, I'd look at PZ, and I wouldn't be far away from the breweries too, both Nigerian breweries and Guinness. In spite of the dip in price for Nigerian breweries yesterday, I still take it as a stock, which if it's at that price, will be a good buy for any portfolio manager now.
Looking at performance there, what type of performance are you expecting on the bourse?
Well, now we've got certainly much less than 45 days to, well, let's say 50 days to the end of the year, right? And we have a situation where we're year to date, we're at 17%. We've gone much more negative than that actually this year, but now the market is beginning to tick up slightly, even if it's undulating in its pattern of behavior. But I expect that by the end of the year, we shouldn't have too much of a negative figure in terms of year to date. Interestingly, the banking stocks, which sector is one of the most highly capitalized and which also represents the most actively traded stocks on the market, has had a year-to-date loss that's actually somewhat worse than the market. But perhaps you can explain that with all what has happened in that sector this year. We've got some banks going off the market because they've been nationalized. We've also got some being delisted because they're being acquired. So there's a great depreciation in terms of index in the banking stocks. However, in the manufacturing sector, yes, it's a negative figure there, about 8% year to date. But when you compare that with the negative 17% on the market, it's certain that the manufacturing sector has still outperformed the market in terms of performance to date.
So if we look at a trade on the bourse today, what stock are you particularly bullish on?
Well, here again, I'm going to go straight back to what I tend to say is my favorite sector. I think manufacturing tends to reflect the rail sector, what's going on around, because those are industries that work with a lot of raw materials, that feel the impact of power generation, and that push out goods to consumers. And whatever sales are made would always reflect purchasing power in the hands of consumers. I did mention Nestle earlier. Flour mills is a good stock. Now, flour mills have a rights issue coming up to the market. Perhaps the anticipated quantum of shares was reflected in the price dip it had yesterday, but it still represents for itself a good stock to hold in the mid to long term.
If we look at the currency at this stage, really falling back yesterday against the dollar to sit on 153 naira and 30 kobo against the dollar, what are your expectations of the currency going forward?
Well, it's really is a bit tricky. We have the MPC having the meetings and trying to work out what policies may be put in place to stabilize the naira, if I can say. But we still keep having pressure on the naira. There is some liquidity in terms of naira right now because of the allocations to the state governments, and that came into the banking system late last week. But then again, there was some demand available on naira terms for the dollar, and that may have put some pressure on the dollar itself. Also, we've got foreign reserves still dipping slightly. And the budget itself is being adjusted in terms of what the barrel price of oil will be coming in 2012. So I see some more pressure on the naira, but I think somewhere along there there will be some degree of stabilization towards the end of the year.